Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Lisa Love, and this is my look at Revelation, an esoteric look. This is part 2. So, Revelation is a book in the Christian Bible that is thought by traditionally exoterically minded Christians to predict the end times. And the book is divided into 22 chapters. And throughout thousands of years, people have looked for these end times to come. But could it be that the end times are always here? And might the themes in Revelation repeat themselves over and over again? That is what this video series is making the case to show, as well as showing how Revelation is a symbolic teaching that is easily deciphered by those who understand its esoteric meaning of revealing how the war between material 666, the circle of spirit is at the bottom, and spiritual values 999, the circle is at the top, are at war within each of us, inside ourselves and out into our world, and how we must fight this battle and win this war each and every day in our everyday lives. So again, what is the exoteric approach? And I say again, because if you're following the different videos, I'm repeating this particular slide in each and every video in case you've jumped in out of order or you need a good reminder. The exoteric approach is when we wake up every day and we focus on the world of the five senses. All we care about is what's out there in the external world and what it can bring us. And the idea is to have dominion or domination over it. We want to be as much as success as we can. And we tend to worship the people who have a lot of domination over the earth. They have lots and lots of stuff, way more stuff than they need. Even being a millionaire isn't enough. They're billionaires. Maybe they're going to be trillionaires pretty soon. They get to dominate everybody with their thoughts, with their ideas, with their business, with their corporation, with their government, whatever it is. And it feeds the idea of selfishness and separation. Why? Because men are better than women, or women are better than men, or one has a right to be dominant over the other, or one race has the right to be dominant over the other, or one worldview is better than another, and it destroys unity. Now, this is not to say that there aren't different views that are good, better, and best, and some that aren't so good anymore. Remember, evil is live spelled backwards. And I once had a teacher say that evil is a great good that has now outlived its usefulness and refuses to die. When we're little babies, we all need to have somebody else feed us and wipe our bottoms. As adults, that's not what we want life to be about. We've grown out of that. And at some point, we need to grow out of old ideas and old ways of thinking and become increasingly inclusive, able to include, but not by losing our ability to discern. St. John says the first thing we are given is a two-edged sword. We have to learn to discern. But as we discern, we don't do it to kind of separate and divide and conquer. We do it to kind of blend and put in everything in its right place. So yeah, babies need to have their bottoms wiped and they need to be fed, and adults don't need that. And I'm a gardener. Every single different plant needs different light, needs different nutrients. Doesn't just need fertilizer, it needs the exact ratio of different fertilizers, needs different water, etc. And this is what it means if we're living truly spiritually. We're developing our minds and consciousness so we can see how to allow everybody and everything to thrive, not to divide and conquer and get rid of it. That's an exoteric approach that falsely believes in a material world system, material reward system, here or in heaven elsewhere, because they have a belief that, whether it's Christian or Islam or whatever it is, that you get to go elsewhere and enjoy the spoils. You get to enjoy them here on earth, and then you get to enjoy them elsewhere if you're in the right group, the right camp. And these people, some of them even glorify the destruction of the earth and believe that that's a good thing because they're chosen over others. And so they have a right to not only have dominion here, but to have dominion elsewhere. And basically, that unfortunately is eating of the tree of good and evil. Evil is lived spelled backwards. The devil is lived spelled backwards. It is dividing and separating and not developing your consciousness and your spiritual capacity to understand, to be inclusive. The esoteric approach is not so concerned with life out there. In fact, the more spiritual you get, the more the natural inclination is to simplify your life more and more and more. Why? Because it's the inner world beyond the five senses which is becoming more and more important. And the idea is to have dominion over yourself and your own negative tendencies, your negative impulses, your negative thoughts, your lazy mind, your lack of willpower, your addictive habit patterns. There's an awful lot of work to do, and it's time consuming, and you don't want to spend your day thinking about stuff all day long out there and watching endless Netflix shows about violence and destruction, because you've got other kinds of work to do, and it's called working on yourself. And the more you do that, the more you feed your capacity to create unity, compassion, and love. And the more you create a world of peace, the New Jerusalem, where all people's views and races are harmonized together so that our earth is purified, cherished, and respected. And that doesn't mean you create one big mush so that you don't understand the differences and appreciate the differences, or learn the developmental stages that different people are going through and how to help them go through those stages correctly so that there's not a lack of purity, which St. John is very, very, very clear about if you understand Revelation. We're going to get into that in this video. And then you eat of the tree of life, which is basically everything goes up the central column of the spine, so you can go into the throne room and awaken the crown chakra instead of go to the two sides of good and evil, which later we're going to come to two olive trees. And St. John is saying what happens, these olive trees are kind of warning you that if you don't, do the work you need to do, then when the dragon Kundalini power is unleashed, it's going to go into creating a war between these two sides, right and left, good and evil, male and female, one race over the other, black and white, instead of unify it and go up the central channel and eat of the tree of life. So in the last video, we went through these 4 chapters. And the basic summary of that video is, but I encourage you to go back and watch it, you're going to get lost if you don't, is that St. John goes into a mystical state, enters the throne room, and has a vision including 7 lampstands with 7 stars above them. And I introduced how St. John is basically going into a state of samadhi and is asked by the divine, which is the word I prefer, for spirit or divine, because it's gender neutral and it doesn't indicate like a human being, is asked by the divine who will be able to open the 7 chakras and enter samadhi, or the throne room, along with St. John. And first, St. John is distraught. He weeps because it seems that nobody can do that. But we're getting into the video here, where St. John is going to be presented with 7 seals, with a scroll, not a book, it should have said a scroll of 7 seals. Some people interpret it as a book, but it's really a scroll. And Chapter 6, the first 6 seals are going to be opened and 4 horsemen appear. A lot of debate in exoteric circles of what these 4 horsemen are. I'm going to show you what the esoteric version of that is. And then the 144,000 will be sealed. That's what this video is going to be about. Where a scroll with 7 seals is opened and 144,000 people are sealed. And in the exoteric version, that's supposed to be 144,000 very special chosen people. And of course, everybody wants to think that they're the special chosen one. Well, when we get done with this video series, you're going to see how difficult it is to become one of the 144,000, and maybe that'll motivate you. It's motivating me to do more of your own cleanup work, because that's what St. John is warning us about. Esoteric. The 7 chakras and their 144,000 points of those stars or petals of those lotuses are opened. And those who open them enter into the throne room, have samadhi states, and eventually will enter into that throne room 24/7 through nirvikalpa samadhi. But we're coming to the next part of the story. We're in chapter 5. And here, let's describe what goes on exoterically first. In the right hand of the man seated on the throne, who we were introduced to before. And now I like this particular presentation because there is simply more the idea of the word or the Alpha and Omega in the throne. Anyway, there is a scroll that is presented to St. John with writing on the front and back, and it is sealed with 7 seals. And an angel says, "Who is worthy to break the seals?" That's interesting here because in this particular artist rendition, we have this angel here presented, who this particular person is saying is one of these 4 entities who is around the throne. And we talked about them in the last video as being the 4 signs of the zodiac, and this is basically Aquarius. John has gone into the throne room, and now the question is, who else is worthy to break the seals to open the 7 chakras? That's not the exoteric version. To open the seals on the scroll is the exoteric version. St. John weeps when he hears no one can open it. And then he is told that the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed and can open the scroll and loose the 7 seals. And then a slain lamb appears with 7 horns and 7 eyes. Not your ordinary lamb, which we are told are the 7 spirits sent out all over the earth that can see all that is going on. And that slain lamb takes the scroll. And the 4 creatures that are in the throne room, and the 24 elders, 12 on each side, those ribs on each side of the heart, so to speak, those 24 hours of the day of samadhi that we talked about in the last video. Basically, they all fall down before the Lamb, holding harps and bowls of incense full of prayers for the saints. And myriads and thousands of angels' voices are heard, along with every creature in heaven and on the sea, celebrating and worshiping the Lamb, along with the 4 creatures and 24 elders. So let's get into the esoteric side of the story. So we'll start out by, what is the scroll? Well, the scroll is Kundalini as it unfolds. Some of you already know what Kundalini is. If you don't know, just keep following along. It is the energy that is rooted at the base of the spine, that as it rises either as a snake, some say it rises as a dragon, there's different kinds of symbolism for it, that then breaks the seals and opens the chakras. So the 7 seals are the chakras that are not yet opened and lit aflame, where they become the 7 stars. Now, when can you or I get a scroll and start to open it? Only when we have become the integrated personality. Only when we have become Leo the lion. This is esoteric tradition. Can we unlock the seals and unfold the scroll? Why? Because only then can we step onto what is known as the path of initiation, or initiation is an expansion of consciousness or enlightenment experience, where we will have our first enlightenment experience or initiation and start going up into that throne room in different samadhi states. And on that path of initiation, the goal is that we are supposed to birth the Christ consciousness within us. We are supposed to become the lambs that will go into Virgo, the sign astrologically after Leo, where we will become virgin, purify ourselves, start to purify ourselves. So we are purified enough that we can birth the Christ child, the Christ consciousness within us, in the cave, in the throne room, which I talked about in the last video. But that only happens once we have reached the state of being the lion. Only then can we step onto the fixed cross and take up the disciplines of purifying ourselves so that the kingdom of heaven can live within us. So the scroll is presented. We see in the throne room, again, these lampstands that are lit. We talked about this in the previous video. And the stars are there. And I believe this is because through meditation, St. John has opened the chakras and entered the throne room. But that is not enough. all of humanity must learn to light these lamps and enter the throne room of the Alpha and Omega. So a scroll is presented with writing on the front and back, and St. John is asked by an angel, and some say the angel is Aquarius next to the throne room, who is worthy to break the seals? And what is an angel? It is basically a person, human being, who has now become angelic, lives within the kingdom of heaven. Here is an actual scroll from that time. I went on the internet, and I don't know if it said it was back thousands of years ago. Who knows if it really is? But it gives you a basic idea of what that scroll presented may have really looked like, and how that was sealed with 7 seals. But as anyone who understands the chakra system knows, that the chakras are composed of a front and back component. And in order for them to open appropriately, you have to get the flow even throughout both the chakras. And only then can you, let me get my pointer, I might need it through this video. Only then, as the Kundalini or the serpent or the dragon, serpent power or the dragon is awakened, will it go up in the appropriate way through purified channels. Otherwise, there's an imbalance, and it starts to go up this way or that way, or creates a war between the two sides. And we see that happening in Revelation. As for what the scroll is, it is, again, Kundalini. Here's a different beautiful artistic rendering of how that wraps up the central column. Sorry, go a little bit more like this. My picture of myself, you can't see it, is setting on here, the little video of me. So here, let me get that out of the way, and then I can go straight up here. So what is the scroll? It is Kundalini that is rolled up at the base of the spine, that has to be unrolled in such a way that the chakras awaken in the right kind of way, that they don't create war. So who is the lion? Again, after the Alpha and Omega presents the scroll and asks who's worthy to break the seals, St. John weeps and hears nobody can open it. And then the Alpha and Omega says that the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed and can open the scroll and loose the 7 seals. Well, in an exoteric world of separation and I got to be special over everybody else, they're not going to read it symbolically. They're going to try and say that only somebody who is from the tribe of Judah and the root of David, and we got to, get it back to that person and find out who that one special person is that will open the seals is going to be. And some say that one special person was Jesus. And I will argue that yes, especially if you learn to understand and see how Jesus was a yogi. I recommend The Second Coming of the Christ by Paramahansa Yogananda. You will see that yes, Jesus went through this process that we're talking about in Revelation, and he created a resurrection body. And you will learn, if you really get into broadening your mind and studying other spiritual traditions, that he is not the only one that has done that. There are other spiritual traditions that talk about that. In Tibetan Buddhism, they call it creating the rainbow body. And there are some people in the Catholic Church that are bridging into that understanding. Because this line comes from the tribe of Judah, exoterically inclined people see it literally as a person coming from the tribe of Judah. But esoterically, we've said that the lion has long been known to be Leo the lion. It represents a stage of spiritual evolution where the person is now integrated enough of their personality. They become king and queen of their own energies, but they're selfishly motivated. So they can tread the path of initiation if they would like to take the scroll and open it. They're being given a test. And this isn't just a person, this can be a country. A country can be given a test. You have now integrated your energies enough that you can get enough power, sex, pleasure, money, and security, and dominion over the outer exterior world of the 5 senses. Have you had enough of that? Have you got sick of that? Have you seen that that's not getting you the happiness that everybody says it's going to get you? And maybe you need to travel a different path, an esoteric path, an inner path, and focus on that more. That's what St. John is saying. Go within. Take that inner path. There's not much out there in real happiness in that outer path. Temporary pleasure, no real happiness out there. Just a lot of disappointment and disillusionment or addiction or dissatisfaction, or, the soulmate never comes because something's always wrong with that person and that person and that person. Unless you're mating with the soul inside, that's where you're really going to find it. Who's this lamb? Well, next, a slain lamb appears with 7 horns and 7 eyes, which we are told are the 7 spirits sent out all over the earth who see all that is going on. And the lamb takes the scroll, and the 4 creatures and 24 elders fall down before the lamb, holding harps and bowls of incense full of prayers and saints. I'm repeating that part. Well, for starters, the lamb has 7 eyes and 7 horns. So this, as I said, is no ordinary lamb. What does this lamb represent? At the time this was written, the lamb was one of the main animals that was sacrificed in the Jewish tradition to Jehovah, their God. Symbolically, a lamb represents someone willing to go through a sacrifice, which is why many Christians with an exoteric understanding believe the lamb to be Jesus, who died on a cross as a sacrifice for them that they may have eternal life. And they tend to get very separative and selfish, and they also tend to do a lot of shortcuts, thinking that if you just believe in Jesus or you just do a limited amount of purification work in your life, you're going to get to heaven and you get to have all the goodies there, or you're the chosen special one on this earth and everybody else sucks. Pretty separative point of view. That's eating of the tree of good and evil. Separation, division, and it creates more division. And it demonstrates, just like when we were looking in the last video at how St. John was judging the churches, at how lackadaisical Laodicea is, lazy we are at doing real spiritual practice. And hey, been guilty of some of that myself, especially when I look at those that are really doing this work above me. Shame on me, let alone shame on anybody else, because there's always more to do. Esoterically, the 7 eyes correspond with the 7 seals, and how we need to poke out with the 7 horns what we see in those 7 chakras. All the impure, separative, and selfish qualities of the lower self, the lion, that is now reigning as king or queen and thinks it's great. It's good. You become a lion. You become like a king or queen on earth. But that's not what it's about. You haven't even started on the spiritual path. Maybe you put a toe in. I wouldn't say that you're a baby Christian. Some people have called people baby Christians, that in my mind, they haven't. A baby Christian is somebody that has had their first experience up into the throne room and had a vision and birthed that Christ consciousness in their hearts, and really has gone beyond the realm of the 5 senses and sees the work that needs to be done to some level. Otherwise, you're just a lion, not really wanting to make any sacrifices. You just want to appropriate religion so you can be even more special and dominate the world and get the chosen people around you to all worship you and make it seem as if you're all special and you need to get rid of everybody else. Tree of good and evil. But only when the lion learns to lay down with the lamb, and the separative personality of the lion can learn to no longer eat of the tree of good and evil, duality, separation, causing division, trying to make evil people out of others and yourself all good. Well, that lion must become a sacrificial lamb and begin to tread the path so that one day you can partake of the tree of life, which unifies. So now, chapter 5, the 6 seals are opened. After the lion, lamb, and scroll come forward, we're now told that the first 4 seals are opened in this chapter, and 4 different colored horses with different colored riders appear. And here we have some artistic rendering I found on the internet that I really liked that I'm using here. As the 5th seal is opened, souls who have been slain come back to life, and they're given white robes along with the power to avenge those who have killed them. And as the sixth seal is opened, the following takes place: a terrible earthquake, the sun becomes black, the moon turns red like blood, stars fall to earth, all mountains and islands vanish, the sky disappears, and kings, great men, generals, rich, strong, everyone, slaves and free, all hide from the wrath of the Lamb. Now, exoterically, this is like, yes, I got to make sure I'm on the chosen side, because if I'm not, when the Lamb, whoever I think is a Lamb, I could call it Jesus, I could call it Muhammad, I could call it Buddha, I could call it whoever I want to choose to be the Lamb, the right one, the winner here. When that one comes, I better be on the right side, because if I'm not, you know, I'm going to be in trouble. These horses are like going to chase me. But I'm going to be able to make sure I get vengeance is mine against those who wronged me in life. Remember in the other video, the church that represented the heart chakra was a great judge of others, but the heart wasn't open, and so they were condemned by St. John. And I'm going to be saved from all these terrible things that are going to happen on the planet by maybe magically I'll just be raptured up into heaven somewhere. That's an exoteric, really sad interpretation of what's really going on here. Let's see the esoteric version. The first horse and rider, St. John says, is given the power to conquer. Well, it's easy to see at first, if you don't understand this whole story and you don't know esoteric symbology, how that means I will be given the power to conquer my enemies, anybody who made me unhappy, anybody who insulted me, anybody who I don't feel is in the right skin color or is the right sex or is part of the right club or part of the right religion. I will be able to conquer over them because that's what St. John says. Sorry, I'm dramatic. But what we're looking at is how to open the seals, and with the lamb, which is a symbol of purification, purify the tendencies in the chakras. Remember, the goal is to enter the throne room where we will see the real, the Alpha and the Omega, first and the last, God, Goddess in everything, the word in everything, and actually learn to factually hear that word in meditation. And we will eat of the tree of life, and we will experience greater unity, have greater compassion. We'll have more humility. We won't feel so special. We'll serve others around us. We'll open our minds and try and understand other people. But when we can't do that, when the chakras, the lamps aren't open or lit with the stars, then the Muladhara or root chakra causes us to want to be a conqueror in the outer world instead of a conqueror of our own selfish tendencies. We fall into the exoteric version of it, which is just the world of the five senses, based on our very limited understanding. Why? Because our consciousness is very trapped in mundane things. And we just basically want to use our selfish, aggressive, and brute tendencies to increase our own material wealth and happiness at the expense of others. We want to be that king or lion. We want to prosper in the outer world, even if it means we're really eating of the tree of good and evil, creating more division and separation, bringing about greater insecurity, instability, and fear into the world. That is the opposite of what the Lord of the world, who sits on the throne in heaven, Shambhala, wants for us. This is what happens when the first seal is broken and we haven't done the work to clean it up, to poke out the evil negative stuff and sacrifice it with one of the eyes and one of the horns of the lamb. We got to purify this. And if we don't purify it as a country or as a planet, we will have rulers arise who use their selfish, aggressive, and brute tendencies to increase the material wealth and happiness of themselves or the select group that they blackmail or they lie to or they pay off somehow. They will create separation and division. They will want everybody else to hate, distrust, dislike others. And they will create greater insecurity, instability, and put more fear into the world. So it's not just individuals that have to do this cleanup, it's humanity, and it's different countries. So what is St. John telling us that we need to do when this chakra is unsealed? Well, when the lion is willing to lay down with the lamb, the eye of this chakra opens. The eye of that lamb is willing to see the negativity there and to sacrifice it, to poke it out. And what is the negativity? I'll use the word me. I'm not totally pure either. It's my desires, it's any of our desires to want to conquer, to want to be better, to want to be seen, to want to have it all. It's any kind of teachings. They could be new age teachings, new thought teachings that basically say that I get to tell the universe that I get to have whatever I want at the expense of everybody else. It has to be sacrificed. You're not the only human being on the planet, neither am I. And it's still even hard for me when I look at this Muladhara chakra. Am I living simply enough? How much of this is my own greed versus need? These are interior questions that St. John is wanting us to take a look at, to conquer. The power in the Muladhara root or base of the spine chakra is now channeled, and we bring about more energy, stability, comfort, and safety into our lives for the purpose of feeling rooted and secure in the manifest world so that we can begin to understand our I amness as spiritual beings and use our greater material wealth and security for helping others. Now, that's always a really tricky thing to look at, isn't it? As we went, I'm doing this in January 2021, I just did another house cleaning and I got rid of a bunch of stuff. I live in a fairly simple place. Two of us live in a 1,200 square foot home in the United States. It's pretty simple. In other parts of the world, maybe that's pretty greedy. But I went through again and cleaned out a bunch of stuff and gave away a bunch of stuff, tried to give it to people that I thought could really use it. And again, was examining everything. Do I really need this? Is this adding to my consciousness? Is this adding to my service activity? Is this adding to my ability to create this stability in my own life so that I can be safe enough and secure enough that I can use my energies for the sake of service so that others can have more and not just me, more wisdom, hopefully in this video. Honestly, if I look at myself, I think, geez, I could probably, if I was really, really there, sacrifice a heck of a lot more here. But, here's the problem on the spiritual path. Sometimes we sacrifice so much that we create instability and a lack of safety. And we don't have enough inner spiritual mastery that we can handle those levels of simplicity and still stay stable inside ourselves and in our lives for the sake of service. So that's a judgment call for everybody. You could be somebody with a tremendous amount of wealth, and yet you're living relatively simply with that wealth. In my dissertation on wealth and spirituality, I was examining that for 5 years, looking at what different religions had to say. How much is enough? And there are some really wealthy people who tend to give away about 90% of everything they make. And most multimillionaires, this was in the book, The Millionaire Who Lives Next Door, tend to live pretty simple lives and attributed their inner security and happiness to the fact that they lived simply with their money, created more security with their money, and used that money to benefit a lot of other people. So we're challenging the idea, can you really be a billionaire and really do good? And here's the temptation of that. Even if you are, and there's some billionaires I've researched and I respect, but if you are thinking that only your mind knows, that can corrupt you too. So this is a really tricky thing St. John is asking us to look at in our own lives. How much is enough? How much do we really need? What will help us really have the energy, the stability, the comfort, and safety so that we can serve to the utmost capacity in our lives with the resources that we are blessed with? Second seal, horse and rider, is emerges and is given the energy to remove peace from the earth so humans might slay each other. On the spiritual path, that power in the Svadhisthana or sacral chakra helps us to maintain a focus on sharing, connection, community, and sociability so that the pleasures we partake in build versus destroy the good of the overall whole. And we maintain our equanimity and stay detached from our outer desires. Here's some of those key words down here. Here's the star lit in that chakra. We're the knight, ready to do battle with these negative tendencies. And if we don't, then peace will be removed from the earth. And this horse and rider is saying, which path are you going to choose? Are you going to choose the path to conquer whatever removes peace in yourself or not? When we do not know how to maintain connection with each other, to maintain community and civility, we eat again of the tree of good and evil. We make demons of each other. Then it makes it much easier to slay one another and remove peace from the earth. When we're overly attached to having our way selfishly and insist that all our desires be fulfilled no matter what, who cares if other people are suffering and we're being greedy and selfish? We looked at that with the last horseman and lamp or chakra. Peace is likewise removed from our minds and lives through worry, hate, and division. So this horse has the power to remove peace from ourselves. Why? Because we want to satisfy our pleasures. So we get into addictive habits and tendencies, and our bodies suffer and our brains suffer. We can't think straight. Or we start to take on so much stuff that we have to worry about keeping it all the time. And we start to be afraid about other people taking it from us, blah, 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 blah. Peace is removed from our minds. And as we live on that fear, we're much more likely to, instead of use the lamb and the eye and the horn to sacrifice it in ourselves, we'll poke out the eye of somebody else and make sure they stay away and don't get our stuff. Positive tendencies when the chakra is unsealed. When the lion is willing to lay down with the lamb, the eye of the chakra opens, and we use the eye and the horn of that lamb to slay our negative tendencies to make others into enemies. Now, we may not like what somebody else does. We may not understand what somebody else does. We may wish people were different. We may have legitimate grievances and wounds. But if we're doing what St. John is telling us to do, instead of going out there with revenge, we're going in here and doing the necessary inquiry and work. Why is it that I'm making such a big deal out of these things? What is it that's triggering off in me? Do I really have a right to all this stuff? Is that person really harming me? If that person maybe is harming me, I used to specialize in as a counselor in helping people who are in abusive relationships. Well, then how do I set a boundary so I'm safe? Or how do I work with that person to get them to see their abusive patterns? How do I have compassion and understand how those abusive patterns emerged? How do I see the learned helplessness that I've developed by being in abusive relationships and how that's making me put up with abuse that I see in others when I shouldn't be? We do the introspection. The eye is turned inward to do the introspection, and the horn is inward to poke it out. Instead of the eye in others, the log in our own eye that Jesus says that we learn to remove. Why? Because we don't want to make others into enemies and destroy community, our families, our relationships with our loved ones, make them enemies. We don't want to destroy civility. We want to encourage it. And anybody who is causing incivility, we want to find a way to say that's not okay. You need to stop. We've got to clean up this lamp so it's lit when we unseal it. We've got to purify it. It's not okay to be incivil. It's not okay to incite. It's not okay to create chaos out there. But that can also mean something really hard. We have to remain unattached from insisting that our desires alone are fulfilled. Maybe we do have too much. The horseman before this, the chakra before this. Maybe we do need to simplify. Maybe we do need to be more generous. Maybe we do need to watch our cravings and desires. Maybe we do need to ask, is what we're desiring and think of as pleasurable really giving us ultimate happiness or destroying it? Maybe we do need to take more time for meditation and reflection and introspection and trust in the Alpha and Omega to guide us into experiences that cleanse us from too much excess of desire and attachment to what we want. That is what St. John is saying as these seals are broken. You have to be careful because it could go either way. It could go in the Ida of the Pingala, the two separate channels, or up the central channel. It could go into the tree of good and evil or the tree of life. And the horseman is going to give us the power to conquer others or conquer ourselves, to remove peace within ourselves, or to enhance it, depending on whether we do the purification work when the seal is broken and the lamp is being lit. Third seal in Horse and Rider. The third horse and rider hold a balance or scales. You can kind of see that down here in the picture. This rider has the power to give and take and is told by the four creatures, the ox, the lion, the eagle, and man, once again representing the four zodiac signs of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, which means that St. John is saying that you are somebody that is on the spiritual path trying to do this cleansing work of these lamps or chakras. So this rider is told to give a quart of wheat for a denarius, an ancient Roman coin, 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, but do no harm to oil and wine. It sounds kind of strange, unless you know the chakras. Then you can see how this relates to the Manipura or solar plexus chakra and the ability to give, empower, or take, disempower others in a balanced, just, and fair way. That is the sign of Libra, the scales, of balance, of justice. Do we give and take? This horse rider is saying, I'm giving you the power to give and take, to create balance, justice, and fairness. But that will only happen when this chakra is unsealed, the scroll, the seal is broken, and the lamp is lit, if it's been purified enough. Otherwise, the negative tendencies are going to appear. The lion, the selfish personality, does not lay down with the lamb, does not sacrifice its selfish tendencies, is not then fair and just. It takes and takes and takes from others and doesn't even allow others to have necessities that they need, like wine and oil, which were necessary in ancient times, to survive. We don't give others even enough food, wheat and barley, for their bodies and souls to survive. We are unjust, unfair. We disempower others because we ignorantly believe it is our God-given right to dominate, punish, and abuse those around us. We don't look to see, is the color of skin we're in creating a sense of unfairness? Is the sex that we're in creating a sense of unfairness? Is the country that we live in creating a sense of unfairness around the world? And I'm not just talking, I live in the United States, about the United States. Other countries can be creating unfairness around the world. Are we fair with each other? I used to joke when I worked with gang kids that they'd say, life isn't fair, life isn't fair. I said, the only place I know where the fair is at the fairgrounds. Go find yours. But that's not really how it should be, is it? The only way we're going to create justice and balance is fairness is we have to learn. How are we disempowering other people? How have we been disempowered? Are we really disempowered if we think we are? If we get a global perspective, are we really? How are we judging other people based on sex or color of skin, instead of really taking a look at who they really are as human beings inside? When the positive tendencies of the chakra are unsealed, we sacrifice our selfish tendencies. We make sure that not just us, but other people have the food, the wheat, the barley that their bodies and souls need. We don't care what color skin they are, or what sex they are, or what religion they are part of. Yes, you don't want to give things to people that are going to, exploit, abuse, take away. That's part of using the scales to see how do you be just and give something to somebody who's going to be just, who's going to be fair. But you don't do it based upon external things like color of skin, you or what religion you belong to, or what country you're in. You do it based on what kind of human being is this, and how wise are they going to be with the resources that they get. We make sure we do no harm to other people's necessities, and we make sure that the people we give those necessities to for distribution to others will do no harm. We empower others in a fair and just way so that they, in turn, will pay their fair share back. Remember, it's not just giving, a denarius is given back. There is an exchange here, so that the consciousness is evolved here, so that other people that are given learn to have greater dignity, self-respect, and appreciation for what they receive. That way they and we will only take according to our needs and not our greeds. It's a tricky thing to look at. You can start with your home. Are you empowered or disempowered in your life or in your workplace, with your family, with your friends? If you're disempowering others, who may they be? If you feel disempowered, how did that happen? What can you do to fix that? How can you become more empowered? And as you're empowered, are you selfish with it? Are you negative with it? Are you fair with it? Are you just with it? Are you balanced with it? Or are you empowered in such a way that you're self-righteous and you're exploitative and you are indignant and you think it's okay to dominate and abuse? St. John is asking us. He's sending us this horse and rider to give us the chance to clean it up. The fourth seal is broken. The fourth horse and rider comes forth, and his name is Death or Hades. And this rider is given power over a quarter of the earth, which means that he may, if he so chooses, destroy it with famine, pestilence, and wild beast. Now, this horse and rider are easily associated with the anahata or heart chakra. Actually, it is through the heart that life and death happens within the body. When the life thread is pulled from the heart, the person is dead. You can lose consciousness. You can be in a coma. You can go through a near-death experience, and the brain is seemingly brain dead. When the heart is dead, you're dead. So this has to do with the heart chakra. Now, what happens? We saw that church that St. John talked about in the last video, whose hearts weren't opened. When the heart is opened, its message is essentially love. But when the lion does not lay down with the lamb in this chakra, this lamp stand to light the star here, love is sacrificed and hate emerges. And then death and destruction of others follows when there is enough hate. For hate always results in a loss of love, compassion, acceptance, and sincerity. We don't appreciate other people. We despise them. And then once again, access to the tree of life, unity is blocked, and separation and division abound as we go into the tree of good and evil. And then, yes, death and Hades could end up destroying a quarter of the earth with famine, pestilence, and wild beast, unless, and this is what St. John's telling us, unless we use the eye and the horn of the lamb to take a look at what is going on in this chakra and poke out the things that shouldn't be there. In other words, what do we need to kill off? What do we need to sacrifice and destroy here? The answer is simple: our selfish and separative tendencies. So the lion rightfully here summons up the courage needed to destroy, kill off within ourselves hatred, separation, fear, and division. And role model as that is killed off in ourselves, how to encourage others to kill it off in themselves as well. Because only then will the heart, the Anahata chakra, help us regain the qualities of love, compassion, and sincerity and acceptance of others and ourselves so that we can have a heaven. Not only in the throne room as we meditate and enter there, but on earth, the New Jerusalem, place of peace. Only then. So the 4 horsemen have come, and they're asking, which way will the power be used? They're given the power to use it destructively if the negative tendencies aren't cleaned up. But if they're cleaned up, they will be used in a constructive way. That's what they're asking. The 5th seal is opened and the dead come back to life and are given white robes and the power to avenge those who had killed them if they choose to do so. Now this seal connects to the Vishuddha or throat chakra, which includes the power of speech, expression, communication, and creativity. See those words down here, as well as I talk, basically. What do we do with our speech? Words have power. In many indigenous traditions, you did not say the names of the dead because doing so, they felt, brings them back to life. They're dead, let them be. In the Christian tradition, Jesus was known to use words to bring others back to life as needed. So there's kind of a flip side here. You can use it to bring somebody to life, or don't say the name so they don't come back to life. We also know that words can heal or kill. What we do with words is important. Negatively, we use words to harm, divide, spread fear and hate. We fill the world with lies and deception. In short, we become a major tool of revenge, destroying the reputation and lives of others. It can destroy the reputation of ourselves too. Is this, when the seal is opened, is this lamp lit in a way that it's purified? Just look what people are doing with their words. Are they spewing hate? Are they spewing fear? Are they spewing division? Are they spewing separation? Are they making you distrust? Are they lying? Can you perceive whether they're lying or not? What are we doing with words and speech? St. John is asking us. Can we use the eye of the Lamb to sacrifice, to poke out within ourselves the negative tendencies and resist the influence to harm those we feel have harmed us? Are we responsible for our words? Are we responsible for what we watch and what those words are telling us in the way of music, in the way of video games, in the way of Netflix and YouTube videos, in the way of movies? Are we looking at the kinds of words that are sent at us and the words we own and the way people speak and how it influences the words we think, the thoughts we think, and the speech we use? Is that speech getting more and more degraded, or the opposite way around? Because words can unite, they can heal, words can inspire, words can clarify. Yes, we may need to speak truth to power with those words, but we think before we speak, making sure that our words are true, harmless, insightful, necessary, and kind. THINK. And the need for revenge diminishes as love and truth prevail. So the seal is opened. Is the star being lit in such a way that there's too much impurity in here and the negative tendencies are going to spill out? Or the positive ones? And finally, the 6th seal. We'll talk about the 7th seal in another video, but this is as far as we're going here. The 6th seal opens, and again, all kinds of disasters happen. A terrible earthquake makes the sun become black, the moon turns red like blood, stars fall to earth, mountains and islands vanish, sky disappears. Kings, great men, generals, rich, strong, slaves, free, everyone hide from the wrath of the Lamb. Who is the Lamb? The need to sacrifice, the need to see your negative tendencies and to poke them out. And the 3rd eye of the Ajna chakra represents just that: vision, intuition, lucidity, or clear seeing. Clairvoyance basically means clear seeing. It doesn't mean that you necessarily can look out there and see things other people can't. It means you can see clearly what's really going on, not necessarily somebody's aura, as what's really going on in the world. Lucidity. It represents sight or the lack of it. So let's look a little bit more at this. The negative tendencies, when this chakra hasn't been purified enough, and is when the lion refuses to lie down with the lamb, there's a lack of vision. Where there's no vision, the people perish. We don't really see the spiritual realms represented by the sun, moon, stars, sky, and mountains. They're blotted out. We become blind to how hate, fear, and division are spreading across the land and how we're contributing to it. Because of what? Our laziness? So we don't want to develop the ability to really see. We don't want to go to different kinds of sources and see what's really going on. We don't want to talk to different kinds of people to see what's going on. We don't want to own if we see what's going on. And we originally went, oh, I believe that. And now I'm realizing I shouldn't. Or the negative consequences of having had that limited vision and how it made me behave in ways that created more division. In other words, we create separation. Again, we've eaten of the tree of good and evil, and now nothing can live. Again, evil is live spelled backwards, and evil reigns. We have narrow vision, and we're blind to truth. And we may even decide to willingly go along that path. Or if we discover that we have been along that path, we're too afraid of admitting that we've been blind, and we don't want to open our eyes and see the truth. Positive tendencies. When lucidity and clarity come forth, St. John shows us that even the powerful and the weak run in confusion and fear. But he mainly lists the powerful, kings and rulers and those kinds of things. We see the results of our destructive actions. That can be pretty horrifying. More horrifying than seeing the destructive actions out there, which can be pretty bad, especially if it gets into war and genocide and horrific things, is having to see what we've done that's caused this. It's not the evil that men do, it's what good people do. How does that saying go? It's not the evil that men do, it's the good people that see it and do nothing. That's not quite the saying, but it's close enough. Oh, I'll just look the other way. I'll just live in my little bubble. I just pretend it doesn't matter. I'll just keep myself safe. I won't stand up. I won't do what's right. I won't admit to where I've been wrong. I won't expand my view. I won't learn to include more people. I won't learn to create real discernment. Remember, the very first thing is the two-edged sword was given. That was video 1. So that I can really discern truth from lies, real versus unreal. Can we wake up and see the deeper spiritual realities? Can we sacrifice separation, hate, fear, deception, materialism? That's a tough one. Because materialism is rampant, and we've been sold the idea that what this world is really about is the 666. The circle is on the bottom. In the physical, emotional, and mental realms of the 3 lower chakras, materialism rules. We think life is all about stuff. We worship people that have a lot of stuff. They have the money, they have the power, they have the sex, they have the pleasure. They get to exploit and have whatever they want. Can we sacrifice our confusion, our lack of faith, hope, and love, so that the tree of life and heaven open up to us? That will take us to the 7th seal and the rest of the Revelation story, but we're going to find that out in another video when that 7th seal opens. Because right now, St. John switches. 6 seals have opened, and then the 144,000 appear and are sealed. So before the 7 seals open, St. John conveys the following. Next, 4 angels hold back 4 corners and the 4 winds from the corners of the earth. No wind blows on any sea or tree. The angels are then told to seal, protect the 144,000 from all nations, peoples, tribes, and tongues who are given white robes and palm branches. Numerically, we're also told that the 144,000 consist of 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes of the sons of Israel: Judah, Reuben, Gad, Asher, Naphtali, sorry if I don't know how to say that one, Manasseh, Simeon, Levi, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin. Once they are sealed, they all get to sit on Mount Zion with the Lamb. The Father's name is written on their foreheads. They hear a voice like people playing on harps, singing new songs before the four creatures. Here's the four creatures and the 24 elders, 12 on each side. Hopefully you've watched the first video to learn what these really are esoterically. And who are the 144,000? Well, here's the exoteric version. You want to be 144,000? Well, St. John says, you have never defiled yourselves with a woman. You are chaste. You are the first fruits for God and the Lamb. In your mouth is no lie, and you are spotless. Wow, that's a tall order. And then after, all those who have never defiled themselves with a woman and are chaste and have never lied and are spotless, they are sealed. The angels come and prepare the way for judgment to come with sickles to gather the vintage on the earth. So, exoterically, you better hope that you're one of those 144,000 or you're in a lot of trouble. But before I go into the esoteric meaning of 144,000, I want to make a comment a little more on the exoteric version. Because most exoteric Christians believe that when the end times come, those who are chosen ones of God or an avenging Jesus will be suddenly swept up into heaven. Even if their bodies have been dead and buried for tens or even thousands of years in the ground and rotted away, somehow they will miraculously be brought back to life and live in a heaven. Or they've been cremated, some specks from that cremation will make them miraculously brought back into heaven. And they'll either live in heaven or come back to earth and live in a peace forevermore. And these beliefs are drawn from their exoteric interpretation of Revelation. But what's kind of weird to me is even if they wanted to take this literal view of Revelation, well, again, St. John says, you're not going to get there into heaven unless you've never defiled yourself with a woman, lied, and are spotless. So that just means pretty much all of us are doomed. I don't even know how exoteric Christians would even consider themselves as getting to go up in a rapture, because that's not what St. John says. I mean, what does this really mean? Does this mean we're never supposed to have sex with a woman? What does that mean? Be homosexual? Only the men get to have sex with men, nothing else. Should women have only children through some sort of miraculous means? We're all just supposed to have like a virgin birth if we're going to have a child? Or does that mean maybe we're just ancient aliens, say, artificially inseminated is the only way to go in the future? So none of us ever get to have sex. We're just going to have artificial insemination if you're a woman. And maybe men get to have sex with men. I mean, this is where you can go with these literal interpretations if you're not careful. Well, even then, you can't lie and you must be spotless. So, I don't just give up on heaven right now. Unless there's an esoteric meaning to this. And there is one. One consistent with the rest of the story I'm laying out here. But even here, the story might depress you a little bit because it involves a lot more effort at spiritual development than the quick and easy stories of believe in Jesus and you will be saved. In other words, there's a lot of work that you have to do to light these 7 chakras, which interestingly enough, have 144,000 petals or 144,000 points of these stars, if you want to light them all up. Now, slight digression. I didn't put it up because I didn't know if I was going to break some copyright rules, and I really respect Self-Realization Fellowship and Paramahansa Yogananda's work, especially his God Talks to Arjuna and Second Coming of the Christ volumes. They're quite wonderful treatises that give you an esoteric understanding of the Bhagavad Gita and the story of Jesus. But in God Talks to Arjuna, in the 2nd volume, at the very back, there is a chart. And as I study that chart, it's a very elaborate, intricate chart. It seems to me that it's showing the connections of the 144,000 points much more elaborately. But if you really want to look at it, then I recommend you get the book and look at that chart yourself. It's basically got what looks like. I mean, I didn't count them. Maybe it's not 144,000, but it looks like it could be 144,000 different lines drawn to all the different points. etc., that have to be open to create a resurrection body. And those who know the esoteric side of the story know that when you add up all the chakras and petals or points of the stars, you get 144,000. And again, each lamp, when lit, has a star associated with it. Here's the stars in the lamps. And they have points, you could say, instead of petals. They kind of look like points, don't they, on these little stars here? This one has 1,000 points, kind of hard to show in this limited graph. And there's the word of God. And here's the different sounds that are sounded, which we're going to get to those trumpets sounding the sounds in another video here. So the chart to the left shows how many points petals belong to each chakra. And if you add these all up, you get 144. And then if you add these all up, 96, 16, 12, 10, 6, 4. See the numbers? That's 144. And then you times it by 1,000, which is the number here, and you get the 144,000. Another hint St. John is giving us. So the following questions arise then. How chaste or virginal is the material matter, mater, mother aspect of your body and life? How purified are our 7 lamps? How much introspection work have we done on these different points or petals? How pure and spotless has your life been? Hey, I'm looking at mine going, help! How much have you lived according to truth, never lied, and been able to feel, do, or act, love, talk, speak, see, understand the truth of who you are? Which I am are you? A material person, only capable of understanding the world of the 5 senses with limited consciousness, awareness, and understanding? Are you a materially orientated person polluting the various energy qualities of your own bodies in the ways this video has suggested, that St. John is warning us about? Or are you a spiritual being who's done the hard work of trying to clean up your life and live it so you can feel, act, know, love, speak, and see the truth of who you really are as a spiritual child of God, trying to enter the throne room, trying to become one of the 144,000 who get to live in that throne room, who have learned how to factually create a resurrection body? This is in the yoga traditions. This isn't just something that Jesus did. This is something that is known in other spiritual traditions. And as I read it, maybe even other Christians have created besides Jesus. Jesus was pointing the way to the truth so that we could all have eternal life. Finally, what happens if we find in despair that we're not really fit to be sealed and lifted into heaven because we have followed we're sealed because we have followed the dictates that open up the 144,000 points or petals? What do we do if we discover we haven't done that? Well, interestingly enough, as we keep going in these videos, we discover that Revelation has an answer to that. That's what St. John is giving us. So far, he's showing us the work we need to do when the seals are broken, how the 4 horsemen and the others have given us warnings. If we don't do these things in the right way, then when the Kundalini or the dragon is released, instead of going up the central channel to create something purified, it will split into the 2 sides that will war with each other, which the 2 olive trees in an upcoming video will talk about, warn us about that possibility. Here's our summary. As we see, once St. John has entered the throne room, most likely by having opened up his 7 chakras and entering Samadhi, he's presented with a scroll, that coiled up Kundalini energy that will be unscrolled and so that others can be lifted up into heaven. And the throne room will be opened. And the idea is to do this correctly. But St. John is dismayed to see that there's potentially no one who can open the scroll and enter the throne room with him. But then a lion appears, that person who has reached the stage of the integrated personality and is at the heights of their power. And if they so choose to lie down with the lamb, they can open the scroll, but they have to sacrifice. They have to have the 7 eyes that look within those 7 lamps or chakras and use the 7 horns to poke out what is needed so that the impurities are seen, and they do the work with the horns to purify themselves, so that when that Kundalini energy unfolds, they make it straight up into the throne room, the kingdom of heaven, and enjoy the fruits of the tree of life, the way St. John does. So, what does that mean? Well, here's some questions. Will we sacrifice our need to conquer and instead focus on conquering ourselves so that we know who we are as spiritual beings and bring stability, comfort, safety, and prosperity to everyone on earth and not just ourselves? Will we be inclusive, civil, sociable, and indulge in pleasures that bring about greater peace, community, and connection with everyone? Or will we remove that peace through our greed, attachment, and overindulgence in material desires and the fear that happens when we're afraid somebody's going to take our stuff away from us? Will we be balanced, fair, and just with others, empowering everyone so that he can realize who they are as members of the spiritual family, allowing everyone to enter the throne room? Or will we disempower others, leading to greater chaos and ruin because we don't even give them their fair share so they can survive, not even the oil or for the light that they need or the wine, the basics to drink? Will we have the courage to kill off our selfish tendencies, hatred, and separativeness, so love and compassion exist on earth? Or will we give in to allowing for death, destruction, and ruin to destroy our precious planet? Will we use our words with care so that they bring the dead back to life through words of healing, kindness, compassion, wisdom, and the ability to speak truth to power? Or will we kill others with our words through revenge, slander, and lies? Are we able to see the real, the reality of the spiritual realms, the reality of what's really going on out there from a holistic, inclusive, broad point of view, including many different points of views? Do we have spiritual vision and use that vision to uplift and inspire others in an inclusive way? Or are we blind and no longer able to see the great symbols of spirituality on our planet, the sun, the stars, the mountains and moon, and more? Are we losing vision? Will people perish? That's what St. John is asking us. He's giving us a warning in these chapters because it's really necessary. Because if we don't, the trumpets, the sounds of the chakras, will not only show us what we need to do to make sure the chakras are clean before they're stimulated and the trumpets are sounded. We have to be careful. We've got to clean up now, because when those trumpets are sounded, some destruction happens. And if we aren't careful and use that opportunity to really get more serious about the cleanup work, more destruction will happen. That's what we're going to look at through the rest of the story of Revelation. We need to open those seals and light them in the right way, and then we will likewise be sealed. And like all those who have successfully opened the 144,000 stars or points or petals, we too will go into samadhi, and eventually in a permanent way, where we will forever be able to access the throne room and hear the trumpet and word of the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and end, the first and the last, which is essentially infinity. But if we're not chaste, pure, and true to who we are as spiritual beings, then we have work to do. A judgment is coming that at first glance can make us feel full of despair. Only that is not how, sorry for some of the typos here, I proofread, and it seems I still never catch some things. Only that is not how Revelation is going to end. Let's continue our journey so we will still see how we still have a chance to redeem ourselves, not because there is one final end times and only the chosen few will be saved. Remember, this is an ongoing and not a one-time only story. As we are seeing, St. John is giving us a blueprint of what we all can do to live in the throne room of bliss, joy, and peace for now and always, if we are willing to have the true meaning of the story revealed to us and follow it. There it is. As I always do at the end, please support this work. Subscribe to this channel if you're interested in all the different things that I share. Become a Patreon. It's a lot of work to do this. I do it all as a service. So far, I'm happy to do that. But it would really help if I had your help in doing it as well. There are gifts for you if you want to go to that link and not only subscribe to this channel or like it, but donate. Thank you so much.